Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Thursday, and not the usual day we do Benchwarmers, but I was out of town. I was in Wisconsin over the weekend and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Back home now, so got to get caught up on everything. How you guys doing? JM1620 in the house, Flashfire in the house. What is up? Um, it's a good little pun there. Best of AZ. What's going on, brother? Logan Herrera. Yes, we are talking sports balls today. But as usual, if you aren't able to catch the show live, you can always catch us on YouTube at Hat-Club. Be sure to subscribe to us, which is a fancy word for follow, and give us a like if you like what you see. A lot of sports balls occurred over the last few days, of course, while I was gone. So trying to get caught up on everything. So Thursday is kind of a pretty good fit for a non-Monday edition of Benchwarmers, I got to say, just because quite a few things happened this week and, of course, over the weekend. But going to kick things off, as we usually do, with jersey pickups, in which case I only got one over the last week. It actually came in last Monday, not a little, like an hour after we got done with the show, so I wasn't able to bust it out, but saved it for today. And that, of course, is a purple Los Angeles Lakers Dennis Rodman jersey. Surprisingly, didn't have it in the collection, and actually got it for a pretty reasonable price. Most of these usually go for about $300 or more, but I think I got this one for like 75. So no complaints there. Gonna go up in somewhere on my rack here. VT Kevin R, what's going on? But yeah, oddly enough, still not a lot that I need has really popped up. So I don't know what I'm gonna have for next week necessarily, unless I forgot to open a package somewhere, but I'm not seeing one. But anyway, I'm sure some will come up between now and the end of the year. So hopefully. Anyway, let's talk about Jared Clark in the house. Do dirty work like Rodman, indeed. Oh, Elk Dot, got a question here. Ben, I have the most random hack question for you. Way back in the early Hack Club days, way back in the early Hack Club days, were there ever Hack Club customs done for a team called the Bashers? Whew. Let me get back to you on that one. Nothing. Hold on. I might be able to figure this out really quickly. It's going to slow the show down a little bit, but of course, you have to ask a hat related question when we're talking about sports. Give me one sec. Gotta log in. So of course I need facial recognition and everything because Skynet is always watching us. Anyway. Bashers. Polo Gary, what's going on? I got stuck in a hard question here. All right. Bashers. Nothing came up. That's not a no answer necessarily. That's just a product that was not in our Shopify account. So if there was a Bashers related pot product, I know there was the Base Stealers, because that was like an old clink room design from like way back in the day. But as far as the Bashers are concerned, nothing rings a bell. So I was gonna say, I'm gonna have to do like a super deep dive on this probably after the show, if not later tonight, because I gotta do flip the script after this, but I will figure it out. There, I'm smiling. I'm smiling for you, Flash. Anyway, kicking things off, we're talking about ladies hoops. Congratulations to the New York Liberty. It only took 6 times to get the job done, and that is not an insult in any capacity. Of course, the New York Liberty were one of the first ever WNBA teams. Oh, for the facial recognition. Yeah, I get it. No, all my facial recognition involves me not smiling. So it's just really more of a question if I have a hat on or not, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, New York Liberty, of course, one of the original WNBA teams from the early to mid 90s. 6 appearances in the WNBA finals. This trip, of course, was number 6 against the Minnesota Lynx, and they got the job done. Only took 5 games, which, of course, it is a 5-game series, and win overtime. So congratulations, New York Liberty, on your first ever WNBA championship. Brianna Stewart, of course, the WNBA Finals MVP. Final score 67-62. So not exactly a widespread game. Of course, I said it went to overtime, but honestly, for WNBA Finals, this was probably one of the better ones that I've seen. And I had said it before the finals even started. The Lynx are not a team to sniff at. Of course, the New York Liberty are stacked with all-stars. But the Lynx have always had the pedigree. They've won multiple WNBA championships. And realistically, there was no way the New York Liberty were going to let this one go by the wayside, especially considering the fact that they took down the Las Vegas Aces, who were the reigning WNBA champions from last season in the semifinals. And there it is, a very happy Sabrina Ionescu, Oregon Ducks, proud. And I remember this came up after the Ohio State game where somebody, I don't know if they were trying to make an insult or if they were just stating fact, but basically the Ohio State's fan comeback. This wasn't to me. This was just something I saw because I'm not much of a shit talker when it comes to college football, especially considering the fact that Oregon has obviously not won a college football national championship. So, but the comment they made was Sabrina Ionescu is the greatest athlete in Oregon history. And I think the responder, who I know for a fact is an Oregon fan because of the fact that I do follow them, which is the whole reason why I saw this argument on Twitter. And their response was like, yeah, and I mean, realistically, you can make the argument that Sabrina is a top 3 Oregon sports legend. You got to throw Steve Prefontaine up there. I know Marcus Mariota is somewhere in the top as well. Galen Rupp, you can throw up there. Ashton Eaton, probably the greatest Olympic athlete of all time, just because 2-time decathlon winner. Not to mention the fact that he broke his own personal record and the world record in the decathlon. So I would say realistically, yeah, shout out to Michael James. Shout out to Kenyon Varner on top of which too, and Darren Thomas. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's like really that out of the ordinary to say Sabrina is probably the greatest athlete of all time to come out of Oregon. So for sure in the Mount Rushmore, for sure in the top 4. So yeah, I'm sticking to that one. So like I said, I don't know if that was supposed to be a jab, an insult, or whatever, but the underlying reality is like, yeah, she kind of is. So, and this really solidifies her legacy as far as from a professional standpoint of, somebody who went to Oregon, somebody who dominated Oregon, somebody who probably should have had a national championship if it wasn't for COVID, because the women's team would have won the championship that year. Mark my words. Yeah, they would have met up with South Carolina in the finals, potentially, if not in the semifinals. But I'm pretty sure Oregon would have taken them down. So, anyway, moving on. NBA. This of course was all the buzz from Tuesday, so of course I got to throw my 2 cents at it. LeBron James and his son Bronny James, LeBron Jr., making their historic debut together in a professional game for the Los Angeles Lakers. The first time a father-son duo has ever touched the court in a regular season game in NBA history. And, not to suck all the air out of this, which of course I'm going to do. Who cares? Flashfire, right on it. Who cares? And Elk Dot coming up with my next point. When Ken Griffey Jr. and Sr. did it back in the late 80s, like it was a big deal. And especially considering the fact that both of them hit back-to-back home runs, which when we're talking about father-son feats in any professional sports history, that is really like the high point of the mountain. Like you can't really get anywhere beyond that, unless of course they won a World Series that year, which of course they didn't because the Seattle Mariners have never been to a World Series. But more specifically, as it is right now, Bronny didn't even score a single point. So yeah, there's the fanfare there. This is a big deal. Like I totally get it. But at the end of the day, this is all just a PR scam fronted to appease LeBron James, to appease NBA fans, or at least most NBA fans. I, for one, am not a huge fan of it, but I'll get to that reason here in a second. And of course, to appease Laker fans. Brother Bishop, what's going on? You showed up right on time, dude. Getting spicy. But anyway, it like Elk Dot just said, it also felt very manufactured, which 100% it did. Because in the same sense of LeBron James breaking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record and him saying, I'm not going to have a moment. We're just going to, play on. There was a moment. They stopped the goddamn game so he could give a speech, talk about it, take photos, etc., which is exactly what they did here. And then, of course, the Lakers lost the game. Not in this case. The Lakers did win this game against the Minnesota Timberwolves, which we'll talk about here in a second. But the big issue I have with this is why? Why did this happen other than, yes, LeBron James is currently the best basketball player on the planet and has been for the last few years. But why do we need to cater to this? Like, if Bronny was talented enough to get into the NBA, which I am still on the fence about, then we don't need to manufacture this moment the way that the NBA did and the way that the Lakers did on opening night. So here's the point I wanted to make. Boogie Ellis, one of Bronny James's teammates at USC, and arguably one of the best USC players, probably from a male standpoint, since I'm going to say OJ Mayo. So we're talking like mid 2000s. So it's been a good stretch since USC has actually had like a really solid player, NBA caliber type of player, to make it to the show. And last week, Boogie Ellis got waived by the Sacramento Kings. Honestly, I thought he was going to make the final roster, but considering the fact that the Kings are very guard heavy, it was looking more than likely down the stretch that he was not going to make it. Now, I hope to God Boogie ends up with another NBA team. If not, he is going to play professionally in Europe, if not China, if not elsewhere. That's fine. But to say that Bronny James is more deserving of an NBA roster spot over Boogie Ellis, that's ludicrous. And here's why. So just going back to USD statistics, to which case Steven Seabright, who's not in the chat today, my friend Alex, the three of us went to the Pac-12 tournament back in March, the final Pac-12 tournament at that. And Boogie Ellis put on a show, much in the same sense Boogie Ellis put on a show during Summer League when I happened to go this year. But look at these stats. Boogie Ellis, 16.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, 3 assists. Leads overall in points. He's up there pretty high. I mean, for a guard in rebounds, granted, DJ Rodman led the team with 5 rebounds a game. And still, top of the table, second place in regard to assists. Not too bad. Where's Bronny James at? Oh, yeah, Bronny James coming off the bench with 4.8 points, 2.8 rebounds, 2.1 assists. Nothing to sniff at. Nothing really extraordinary going on there. Not to mention, before the season started last year for college basketball, Bronny had heart surgery. So there's already a bit of a medical disqualification that should have gone there. And it's just like, I'm glad he's healthy. I'm glad he came back, etc. But that's definitely something that NBA teams and the future have to look at. There he is, Southside Steven Steve right in the house. Love to have you here, brother. But let's look at Summer League stats more specifically. Here's Boogie Ellis's stats for the 5 games that he played in during this year's Summer League. 11.2 points, 51.3% from the field, 54.5% three-point percentage, 1.2 steals per game, and all this in 17.3 minutes. Not to mention the fact that, if I remember correctly, there was a game where he put up damn near 40 points in one of the games I went to. I can't remember who they played, but I know I bet on the Kings in that game just because of the fact that Boogie Ellis was playing, and they didn't play him in like the last 5 minutes. Like, the intermittent subbing that they had for him during that game was very awkward and allowed whatever team they were playing to get back into it. I want to say it was the Wizards. But anyway, how did Bronny do during the summer? Well, in 4 games, 8.8 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, 1 assist per game, 0.8 steals per game, 0.5 blocks per game, 2.3 turnovers per game, 35% from the field, 15.8 three-point percentage. But hey, he went 4 for 4 from the free throw line. So big deal. So once again, going back, 11.2, 51.3%, 54.5%, and Bronny's in the NBA and Boogie Ellis is not. Travesty. Goddamn travesty. And I know we're in the twilight of LeBron James's career, but the biggest fear that I have for this season, and of course, I'm going to talk about it here when I talk about baseball, is that the NBA is going to do whatever they can to get LeBron and Bronny into an NBA Finals. So, who their matchup is going to be? Well, let's be real. It's going to be the Boston Celtics because of the fact that of all the rivalries we've had in the NBA, the most iconic is hands down Lakers versus Celtics. And as we're talking about accomplishments of father and son in professional sports, why not continue to add to that? And yeah, so that's the way I kind of see the season panning out, which is exactly. I'm not happy about it. And I hate the fact that I cooked this stuff up in my head. And I know it's a deep conspiracy theory, only one game into the season. But let's be real. It more than likely is going to happen. And you heard it from me first. So anyway, moving on to more basketball. A trade that occurred about 2 weeks ago that I'm still trying to figure out. Maybe it was more than 2 weeks ago. The New York Knicks and Minnesota Timberwolves did a bit of a big player swap. Karl Anthony Towns on his way to the Knicks, while Julius Randle and DiVincenzo going to Minnesota. Now, odd move for the Knicks to get rid of DiVincenzo, considering the fact that they had gotten, the Villanova boys together with the addition of Mikal Bridges. So odd move to get rid of him, but at the same time, smart move to get rid of Julius Randle. But the fact that the Knicks don't have Hargenstein anymore and they brought in KET and they still don't have like a legitimate backup center, that's a bit of an issue. And the reason I bring this up is because, of course, both the Knicks and the Timberwolves were in action on Tuesday. And look at that. Celtics took down the Knicks by 23 points. I mean, they were up by like 30 at some point during this game. And of course, the Timberwolves lost the Lakers on Tuesday by 7 points. So I don't understand this trade at all. And as a Pacers fan, I suppose I should be happy for it, especially considering the fact that the Pacers go against the Knicks tomorrow. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Elk Dot. I know you're a Knicks fan, but go Pacers, baby. Perhaps this is going to, just streamline Indiana's route back to the Eastern Conference Finals. Yeah, the Celtics are still going to be tough and going to be the biggest opponent there, but I can realistically see the Pacers being the 2 seed because of this move. If this trade didn't happen, the Knicks are legitimately going to be a 2 or a 3 seed. So I don't know where the Knicks stand on this one now. So it was an odd move all around. Elk Dot, of course, saying Brunson over Holly. Sure. Whatever, pal. Southside Steven Seabright, going back to the Lakers commentary, asked the question, you don't believe that it's just JJ's coaching? We'll see about that. I mean, I'm kind of curious to see how JJ Redick is going to finish out as an NBA head coach. I mean, so far so good. You're 1-0. But it's really going to, go down the stretch when we get some healthier teams in there, some more lively competition. I know Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves are like nothing to sniff at, but realistically with Julius Randle and DiVincenzo, they're not the high profile team they were last year. Like losing KAT is going to be a bigger issue in the long run, especially considering the fact that him and Rudy Gobert, as a tandem, as a duo, were pretty solid. So I think it's going to take some time before Randall and Rudy Gobert, synchronize and get on the same page. So I don't know. Elk Dot says Knicks didn't want to give Randall an extension. That was a smart move, but realistically, they should have kept Hargenstein. I mean, for the fact that Randall was out during the entire playoff run for the Knicks and Hargenstein as a bench center starting for the Knicks in every series actually turned out to be like a pretty badass player for you guys. Like, it's insane that they allowed him to go. Like, that should have been the move. If you're going to trade Randall, keep Hargenstein. But they did it so ass backwards that, as a Knick hater, I'm okay with it. So Logan Herrera says, R.I.P. Rudy Gay. He ain't dead, just not in the league. Yeah, my bad. I meant to say Rudy Gobert. So anyway, moving on. Shout out to the Clippers. Hold on one second. I need some water. If you guys didn't watch Wednesday's Phoenix Sun versus LA Clippers game, the Suns won in overtime by 3. Harden missed a free throw, which was mind-boggling. to tie it up and possibly force a second overtime. But Devin Booker and of course Kevin Durant both had nothing but great things to say about the wall. That of course is the fan section at the new Intuit Dome. So shout out Steve Ballmer on top of which too. $2 billion of his own money to build a stadium because that's what good owners do. Or sorry, that's what good governors do because they don't use owners as a term in the NBA anymore, which is fine. But to give it like a collegiate type atmosphere, it's only Clippers fans allowed in that section, and I absolutely love it. And Elk Dot pointing out the t-shirt toss that they do from the scoreboard, absolutely incredible as well. Steve Ballmer, um, even though I don't see the Clippers winning a championship in like the next 3 or 4 years, the fact that you care so much about this team and the fans and the fan experience, shout out to you, man. Um, I've never been happier for somebody who just like genuinely cares to own a professional sports team and knows the cost that it takes to do it. And I'm not talking about financial. I'm talking about mental health as well. Because if you've ever seen Steve Ballmer on the sideline, you know, he lives and dies by every play. And I love that. And to take over the team underneath Donald Sterling, fuck that guy, is great. And I wish more sports leagues would encourage something like that. Major League Baseball, Oakland A's, John Fisher, because we'd be in a much happier state if that was the case. So shout out to Bomber, shout out to Clippers fans, shout out to the Intuit Dome. Can't wait to actually go enjoy a game there at some point. The Pacers obviously going to play there some point in time this year. I got to look it up. And I'll let you guys know. I'll report back once I get that experience. So anyway. Boo! The New York Yankees are going to the World Series, taking down the Cleveland Guardians in 5 games. God damn it. Game 5, of course, ended with a 5-2 final score. Yankees piled on the last 3 runs they needed in the top of the 10th inning. I know Elk Dot's happy. He's a New York Yankee fan. But I'm not. God damn it. So, of course, this will be the 41st appearance in the World Series for the New York Yankees, who, of course, as we hear every year, have more World Series than any World Series titles than anybody else. So, yes, with the 27, of course, you have to go 41 times to be able to do it. So, and yeah, shout out to Giancarlo Stanton for putting on a Randy Arozarena type postseason. Randy, of course, back in 2020, the COVID year, broke the major league record of most home runs in a postseason. And, you know, there is a possibility that Giancarlo can at least tie, if not beat that. But he was definitely the catalyst for the Yankees offense during this series. Rookie manager Stephen Vogt, who I still feel confident is going to get AL Manager of the Year. He made some interesting moves, which ended up costing the team. But shout out to him because he did not shy away from the questioning after the series was over, after any of the games were over. He played a lot of it on gut instinct, and you know, sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. But he had a great quote about it. I don't want to misquote him. As a longtime A's fan, I believe in Stephen Vogt. This is going to be a learning experience for him. And I think the Guardians are going to come back stronger. Hopefully, they're able to retain Josh Naylor. I've already seen people talking about bringing back Carlos Santana and letting Naylor go. I guess, sure, that's insane, but it's also not a bad idea at the same time, especially for the economics of it. But I hope to God the Guardians can contest next year just because of the fact that they're a good squad. Yes, their bullpen needs a little bit of improvement, especially Clase. Oh my God. I feel bad. I feel bad just because he was such a lockdown relief pitcher for the Guardians all season. And then, of course, he gets thrown against the buzzsaw that is Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, and Giancarlo Stanton and just completely crumbled. And that's why the Yankees won. So they capitalized when Guardians pitching could not. So shout out to them. They're going into their 41st World Series. And then there's the other team on the National League side, the Los Angeles Dodgers, who will be going to their 22nd World Series. They, of course, wrap things up against the New York Mets in 6 games by a final score of 10-5 in that game 6. And overall, this is going to be the 12th, count them 1, 2, 12th meeting of the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers in the World Series. The last, of course, took place in 1981, 2 years before I was born. So you could say, in theory, I had like a good stretch in my lifetime of not having, both the axis of evil essentially going against one another in a championship game. Because realistically, if you're not a fan of either of these teams, which obviously Elk Dot and a couple of you other viewers, commenters, and subscribers are, Dodger fans more specifically, you're in a good spot. But the rest of us, baseball fans, we hate it. But that didn't stop me from buying both hats like I do every year. I bought them Tuesday. They shipped out yesterday. So I should be getting them here in the mail probably tomorrow, if not Saturday. And they will go up my World Series in my lifetime wall. And of course, I will wait to see which of these juggernauts will take the crown so that I can buy their ring ceremony hat at the beginning of next season, which also I'm not a huge fan of, but it's got to be done because I do it every year. Just straight up punishment. Yeah, I'm still going to watch it. I watch the World Series every year. I cannot miss out. Elk Dot asked the question, will Hat Club get the gray bottom version of the on-field online? So here's the deal with that, because that's been a question a lot of people have been asking. Same with icy bottoms, same with pink bottoms, etc. So the earliest that we'll be able to make those hats is probably, or get those hats in, is more than likely going to be closer to the beginning of next season, just because every time a patch is introduced, there's like a 3 to 4 month window before we can start using it as a custom, as in sewing it onto the hat. Obviously, the World Series patch hat is a sewn patch, but it's also heat pressed on, because New Era does not make the patches. A third party does it. It's the same company that makes the sleeve patches for all the jerseys and stuff like that. So there's a 3 to 4 month window for New Era to retain ownership of the patch. And that's why, bam, we can start using it at that point in time. So yes, I would say next season we should have them. Elk Dot saying, I saw NoHo had them in store. No, it's the black. It's the on-field version. It's the black underbill. Believe me on that one. Like, if there's no way in hell that we could have made gray bottom, pink bottom, icy bottoms 3 to 4 months ago with that patch, when one, we didn't even know what the logo existed like for the World Series, to which case it is, let me go back to the other photo. It's this. So yeah, I was going to say, it's going to take a little time. Don't worry. We'll get them made. We'll kiss your ass a bit there, Elk Dot, and all you other Yankees and Dodgers fans. So yeah, no, we'll have them. So don't worry. Game 1 starts tomorrow, 5:08 West Coast time, because that is the best coast time. Which I don't know how much of the time I'm going to be dedicating to watching that game, especially considering the fact that the Pacers-Knicks game starts at 4:30 West Coast time. So we'll see what happens with that. I'll probably just be flipping back and forth as the Pacers, have like a 40-point lead at halftime or something like that. So anyway, love you. College football. Woo! Hell of a game on Friday, folks. University of Oregon Ducks versus Purdue Boilermakers. A lot of analysts were saying this was going to be a trap game because number 2 team in the country at the time for the Oregon Ducks. It's a Friday game. It's a night game. You do not want to play in West Lafayette during a night game. And guess what happened? Not only did the University of Oregon put a beating on Purdue, a Purdue team that put up 49 points against Illinois the previous week, and that's important because Oregon goes against Illinois this weekend. But this 35-0, the very first shutout on the road for the Ducks since 1992. Which blows my mind to even think about, because I sure as hell was not thinking about the Ducks back then. I was a loyal UCLA basketball fan / Cal football fan. But when you become a student of a university, ultimately you become a fan of that team. So that's the way I did it. I paid my way into it. But yeah, great game for Dylan Gabriel, 290 yards in the air, 2 touchdowns. Unfortunately, an interception at the end of the first half, which was kind of dumb. Jordan James, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 50 yards. I think he had another 6 yards in the air. And Noah Whittington and Jared Harris also had great games. Yeah, bodes well for the future, especially going into this weekend. And another night game that occurred, number 12 at the time, BYU Cougars, Brigham Young University, 38-35 at Lavelle Edwards Stadium against Oklahoma State. Woo! Final play, get that touchdown, win the game. That's all it took. To which case, the thing I want to bring up in regard to this game and, of course, the Oregon game is NCAA never, and I mean never, ever have 2 high-ranking teams play on a fucking Friday night ever again. Like, for all attention on them purposes, yeah, it's cool. But in regard to, everybody plays on Saturday, it's kind of nice to keep it at that. But at the same time, I will play devil's advocate with this as well. It's also nice to see the Ducks and the Cougars get wins and then just have to watch the fallout occur on Saturday. And believe me, there was some fallout that occurred. So let's run through this. Auburn was dominating this game against Missouri the entire effing game. But Missouri with some late scores in the fourth quarter. No return, of course, from Auburn. 21-17 was the final score there for the Tigers. This game should have ended differently. And much like 2 other games from Miami should have ended differently as well. 52-45 over Louisville. Louisville was ranked pretty high throughout the season until they got a couple of losses back-to-back. But they held tough with the Hurricanes. And like I said, they had a chance. They had a goddamn chance to win this game. But turnovers after turnovers, after not being able to stop Cam Ward and the Hurricanes offense was a bit problematic. Miami with a 7-point win. So we'll see what happens for them this next weekend. Army continuing their undefeated streak, 45-28 over Eastern Carolina. Clemson, 48-31 over Virginia. Polo Gary's, you're a U fan? Come on. Indiana, the Cinderella story of all the undefeated teams left in the country, let alone the Big Ten. Indiana University Hoosiers, 7-0, big win, 56-7 over Nebraska. Really kind of interested to see how this is going to play out for them because, couple years ago, when Kalen DeBoer and what's his face, former Washington quarterback who's now a backup quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons, whose name I'm escaping on right now, were together in Indiana. That's the kind of squad I would have felt like would be putting up a 7-0 record at this point. But not the case. This is a completely different squad. Different coaching staff. God, I'm stuttering there. So yeah, kind of curious to see how Indiana is going to play this one out for the rest of the season. Navy, the other dominant armed forces university, 51-17 over the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. Big game here. Tennessee, Alabama. Alabama just still clearly rattled after their not only heroic victory over Georgia, but then ensuing next week dismantling loss to Vanderbilt, because then the following week, which was last week, almost losing to South Carolina, and now they get run over by Tennessee at Neyland Stadium. So I still don't feel like Tennessee is like that big of a dog in this national championship fight, but Alabama is clearly not, as they fall down to number 15, which I'm going to talk about the rankings here in just a little bit. But yeah, bit of a surprise to see that happen. Illinois with the win, 14-point victory over Michigan. No real surprise there. Notre Dame taking down Georgia Tech. Sorry, Tafuri. I'm sorry Georgia Tech is having hard times right now. 31-13, Notre Dame over Georgia Tech. Logan Herrera, Texas A&M. Despite losing to Notre Dame week 1, falling out of the top 25, they have climbed their way back into the 14th spot with a 34-24 victory over the punching bag of the SEC now. No longer Vanderbilt. It is Mississippi State, my friends. They are 6-1 on the season. LSU, God damn it. I was really hoping Arkansas was going to pull off a miracle in this game, but they did not. 34-10 over Arkansas. I need to see LSU lose. Vanderbilt continues. 25 ranking. Love it. 24-14 victory over Ball State. And then Georgia over Texas by 15 points. And this, of course, game was in Austin. Big game. Big game. Carson Beck, 3 interceptions, no touchdowns. Shout out to Trevor Etienne for keeping the Bulldogs grounded. 3 touchdowns, 87 yards on the ground for him. 15-point victory for the Bulldogs over the Longhorns to juice them back up into the 2 spot. Texas, of course, falls to the 5. Kansas State over West Virginia, 45-18. Iowa State squeaking by University of Central Florida, 38-35. And then SMU, 30-point victory over Stanford. No surprise there. So we got our AP poll for the end of week 9, or going into week 9 more specifically. Not too different from the coaches poll either. But your University of Oregon Ducks, the number 1 team in the country, the first time the Ducks have held the number 1 spot since the 2012 season, which of course, they end up losing to Stanford the next week by 3 points, and it sucked. But Oregon did go to the Rose Bowl, and yeah, they took down Wisconsin, so it was cool. Anyway, no. Sorry, that was when they beat 2013, because 2012 into 2013, that was when they took Kansas State down in the Fiesta Bowl. My apologies. The previous year was Oregon over Wisconsin. Year before that, Oregon National Championship against Auburn. Year before that, Oregon Rose Bowl, Ohio State. There we go. But yeah, Georgia up to the 2. Penn State on a bye week slinks up to the 3 spot, followed by Ohio State and Texas. University of Miami in the 6th spot. This weekend's got some really interesting games and a lot of potential for upsets. I'm not going to run through every single one of them, but I will say this. My wife and I got back from Wisconsin last night, and our flight passed through Las Vegas, and your boy made some bets. So come next week, I will share those with you. Whether I win or lose, I will share those with you. But I've got some upset potential occurring this weekend, and hopefully 1 or 2 of those I'm correct on, because that would be a lot of money won. So anyway, NFL, not the best of weeks, but there were some pretty decent moments. Bo Nix and the Broncos taking down the Derek Carr-less Saints by the score of 33-10 on Thursday Night Football. Jaguars taking down the Patriots in London. The Jaguars look like they're finally back, although Drake May, back-to-back starts, not doing too shabby. 276 in the air, 2 touchdowns. It's only a matter of time before, it gets working for him. But I think them moving into Drake May, the Patriots more specifically, going into Drake May as their starting quarterback, is the beginning of the correct turning of the ship. I don't think it's going to happen this year, but for next year, definitely. Get some good receivers, get some good, offensive linemen in the draft. You guys will be fine. This was a big game. Lions over the Vikings, 31-29. Of course, it came down to a game-winning field goal, as all big games should. It was a shootout between Jared Goff and of course, oh my God, I'm spacing on his name right now. Fuck. Redhead from USC, whose name is escape. I don't know why I can't think of his name right now. I don't know why, because I got Andy Dalton running through my head, who is another redhead, but he went to TCU. Fuck. Somebody help me. Help me. Oh my God. Why can I not think of his name? This is the beauty of just fucking live. Sam Bradford. No. Sam Darnold. I almost said Sam Bradford. Who? Sam Bradford was a quarterback for the Vikings at one point. Oh my God. Sam Darnold. Sorry. Shootout. No, it was a good game. So Vikings had scored 10 points early on. I had picked the Vikings in our Pick'ems league to win. They were -2.5, but the Lions had to go and spoil that for me. Foreshadowing for later. Bills taking down the Titans 34-10. No surprise here. It just took them a little bit of time to get the offense working, because I believe the Titans were up 10-0 themselves. And then, of course, the Bills scored 34 and unanswered after that. So smart move there. 16-10, Anthony Richardson back at the quarterback for the Colts, but a 6-point margin of victory in regard to the Colts, that was all I needed. That was all I needed for my Pick'ems league on that one. Seahawks coming back after a tough Niners loss against the Falcons, 34-14. Unfortunately, DK Metcalf did get hurt in this game. So fantasy owners, I know you're already searching for a replacement. Send him to the IR, get that replacement in there. But really curious to see what the Seahawks are going to do this next season. Dude, Seattle definitely ruined some shit. Let me tell you. This was another great game, and I gotta bring this up because a little bit of a story. I'm gonna go with this one. So my wife and I were driving back from the Wisconsin Dells back to Eau Claire for this one. So of course, the Packers being the team of Wisconsin, not the Bucks, not the Brewers. They don't have an NHL team, so whatever. Badgers, you could say as well. Football and basketball, but the Packers will always be number one in Wisconsin. So driving back on Sunday, listening to the pregame, and I especially remember one dude saying, I don't know much about the Texans, but and then he proceeded to talk about how the Packers were going to blow them out of the water, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, bro, what the fuck are you talking about? So, because I think he said the final score was going to be like 31 for the Packers to 13 for the Texans, something stupid. No, it was going to be a close game because CJ Stroud is a badass, but it is Lambeau Field. The Texans did get Joe Mixon back, big factor in this game. And then most notably, Jordan Love playing some good football. But of course, this game came down to a field goal, which kind of blew. But the important thing is the spread in this game was plus 3.5 for the Texans. So your boy covered. 24-22 in favor of the Packers. My wife and I drank many a PBR and ate a lot of cheese curds for that game, and my stomach still hurts from that trip. So anyway, Bengals over the Browns, 21-14. Of course, the news that everybody was talking about and rejoicing about, Deshaun Watson snapping his Achilles tendon, so he is done for the year. I'm whatever about it. It's going to be fun to see Jameis Winston to see what he can do with the Browns offense, which case I think it's going to be a pretty good week. Excuse me. 28-3 victory, Eagles over the Giants. Saquon Barkley sticking it to his former team. And of course, Giants fans letting Saquon have it every time he got the ball. To which case, I got to say, Giants fans, pull your heads out of your fucking asses because that was not his fault. The Giants didn't want him back, and the Eagles did. The Eagles wanted him. So, as a professional athlete, you're going to go where you're wanted and where you're going to get paid, just like any other profession. So, Giants fans, fuck you. Rams with the 5-point victory over the Raiders. I was okay with this because the spread in this game was plus 5.5 for the Raiders, which I took smartly. It was a bit dicey down the stretch. All field goals, of course, for the Raiders, who lost Aiden O'Connell. Gardner Minshew's not cutting it. So they got Desmond Ridder coming in for this next week. So see how that goes for them. Despite the fact that Jaden Daniels got hurt in the opening drive for the Commanders, the hero of Oregon, Marcus Mariota, 40-7 victory over the Carolina Panthers. Great fucking game for him. And for anybody who said he was washed up, his career is over, fuck you, first off. Second of all, love to see him back. Love to see him gunslinging. Love to see him run. If there's anybody who's going to be a suitable replacement for Jaden Daniels in this offense, it's definitely Marcus Mariota. Love to see it for him. Chiefs, 10-point victory over the Niners. The Niners are hamstrung, to say the least. Losing Brandon Ayuk to an ACL injury after his big payday. So glad he's getting his money regardless. And of course, the joke that's been going around, the irony of the only healthy receiver left in the core for the Niners is a guy who got shot before the season started. And that, of course, is Ricky Pearsall. Not something, I mean, it's funny. It is funny, but not something I want to just like stress and joke about and stuff like that. The Niners got some problems right now. And thankfully, they got running backs. George Kittle is basically put together with duct tape at the moment. So it's only a matter of time before he potentially goes down. So Niners, I'm sure there's some receivers out there you guys can throw some money at, pick up off waivers, whatever. Get the job done. 3-4 is unacceptable in the NFC West, especially when you know what your competition is. But the Chiefs, of course, 6-0 right now, despite the fact that Patty Mahomes is having arguably his worst statistical year of his career. So, and he's sitting on the bench on my fantasy team. Thank God. Steelers taking down the Jets 37-15. I know David Kearns was happy about that. I was happy about that one. This one I was not happy about. Speaking of injury plague, Chris Godwin down, dislocated ankle, and it was nasty. Mike Evans down, hamstring injury, not great. So clearly the Niners and Buccaneers are going to be fighting on the waiver wire in regard to like what free agent wide receivers there are available. God, I'm sure Devontae Adams would have loved to have gone to either one of those teams as opposed to the Jets. I mean, certainly love to have him on either one of those teams, but 41-31 victory. Ravens over the Buccaneers. Oh my God, the Buccaneers had this in the opening moments of the game. First quarter for sure, 10-0. And then just, nope. 34 points allowed from that point. Thankfully got their shit together in the fourth quarter, but too little too late and so many goddamn injuries. Fuck. Bucky Irving might be out. God. Oh, and Rashawn White finally given the ball multiple times from a running and a passing perspective. Had him on my bench. I benched my win this week in fantasy because of it. Because I didn't think he was coming back because he was doubtful. I figured, Bucky and Tucker were going to be the catalyst of the run offense. Nope. Bucky was. I mean, Bucky had a great game. Don't get me wrong. But now he's hurt. Fuck. So, moving on. Cardinals, last minute field goal, 17-15. And yes, the Cardinals were plus 2.5 in this game. So whether they made the field goal or not, I was in good shape. So, oh my God. I feel so bad for Justin Herbert. Like, receivers can't hold on to balls and just nothing is going right for him. The man needs to get out of LA. Put him on a better team, for Christ's sake. Look what it's doing for Marcus Mariota. He's so happy now. But anyway, speaking of spreads and stuff like that, I got to bring this up. So here is my wife's hospital's Pick'ems League. And as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 5-way tie for first place this week. There I am right there as the 5th number 1 spot. My wife, lifelong Bears owner. And of course, there's a block of cheese after it because she's a Packer fan. All of us were tied. If not, there was a 10-point difference between going into the last game, whatever. I had the Cardinals plus 2.5. I also had the Buccaneers winning this game, so they were plus 3.5. But it all comes down to how many points total in the final game, to which case the final game was the Cardinals and the Chargers. And as a result of it, because, we're doing this whole 2 Monday Night Football bullshit, if it was just the Ravens and the Buccaneers, even keeping my picks the same, I would have won because there was definitely more than 47 points scored in that fucking game. Fuck. So because 32 total points were scored in the Cardinals-Chargers game, my wife won, which is great. I love you, babe. She's at work right now, but God damn it. If that game was on Sunday and it was just the Ravens Buccaneers games on Monday, I would have won. I'm pained by that. I am so pained. Anyway, let's talk about soccer. Speaking of pain, Tottenham 4-1 victory over West Ham. Man United 2-1 victory over Brentford. Did not like this outcome for many reasons. Aston Villa 3-1 over Fulham. Brighton back on the win train. 1-0 over Newcastle. Southampton almost got the job done, at least got a draw. But 10 minutes of stoppage time in the second half, of course. Leicester City 3-2 victory over Southampton. Everton just keeps on winning. I kind of like to see it. 2-0 over Ipswich Town. Surprise of the weekend. Bournemouth over Arsenal 2-0. And of course, the biggest issue that came out of that was Arsenal getting slapped with a red card in the first half, 30th minute. So no wonder Bournemouth won. This one, fuck. Speaking of 10 minutes of stoppage time, hold on. EPL does not want to see Man City lose, or tie for that matter, draw, whatever you want to call it, because that's exactly how this one was ending. Massive surprise draw that should have been marked out of this one between Wolverhampton and Man City. But of course, Stones, who I love on England, absolutely hate on Man City with the 5th minute of stoppage time goal, second half for the winner. Fuck, it sucked. I hated watching that. As much as I hated this, Liverpool getting a victory over Chelsea. That blew. And then, of course, Nottingham Forest still winning 1-0 over Crystal Palace. So look at the table. Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal, Aston Villa, Chelsea knocked out of the top 4. Damn it. But still hanging there in 6. Plenty of games left to still finish in the top 4 at least. Followed by Tottenham, Nottingham Forest, Newcastle, and Fulham. And of course, the bottom half, Wolverhampton, Southampton, Crystal Palace. What are you guys doing? But nice to see Everton clear, Leicester City clear, West Ham still barely clear. Although I fully expect somehow Leicester City and Everton are going to get slapped with some kind of fine for misappropriation of funds, whatever, just like they did last year. They're going to drop 10 points, whatever. So fuck them. Of course, none of the shit happens to Man City, which it should. Blah. So anyway, poker chips or casino chips, more specifically, as you can see here. Have you seen Jay? Says, curious, Ben, any cancellations, horror pack Cubs? Stock didn't seem as much. Stock was actually pretty high on that one. It was actually the highest of any of the teams. It just so happened everybody was gunning for it. So I don't know about cancellations at the moment. They're probably going to take care of that tonight, if not tomorrow. So keep your eyes open for it. So as I said, my wife and I went to Wisconsin Dells over the weekend, and there's a casino out there, the Ho Chunk Casino. And my wife and I like to gamble, so of course we had to swing through, give it a check. The one thing I really like compared to casinos out here in the Bay Area is they actually have just legit Vegas games. Blackjack is cool. Roulette is just straight up. You pick a number, you got the wheel, boom. They got craps. Not to mention on craps, the odds are actually better at Ho Chunk. I was really surprised about that, more specifically for the bonus bets, because usually the bonus bets, all smalls or all talls, are 30-1 in Vegas, and the hit 'em all is 150-1. Out at Ho Chunk, all smalls, all talls were 35-1, and hit 'em all was 176-1. So you can make some pretty good money there if you hit all the numbers. I had never done that before, but this weekend I did. So I started with, and my wife and I started with $200 on craps. Both of us got knocked around on the slot machines. Slot machines were not going well for us. So my wife suggested, hey, oh, wait, hold on a second. Yeah, that sucks. How's the trip, by the way? You didn't get too crazy at the slots. Okay, yeah, so that's a story I'm going into. So we got knocked around on slots, and my wife was like, hey, do you want to go play craps? Because it was getting kind of late. It was like after midnight. This was the night before my wife's cousin's wedding that we were going to. So they were closing one of the tables down, to which case, we made a little bit of money on that first table. So then everything got knocked over to the last remaining table, which I guess they were closing at like 2:00 in the morning. Because anyway, so we get on, and a dude to my left was playing Dark Side the entire time, just do not pass line or pass line with $100 chips. And apparently before we got to the table, he had already been almost kicked out of the place because he spit on the table. And by spit, I mean he vomited some of his Hennessy. The only reason I know is Hennessy because he mentioned it, onto the table. And I swear to God, I saw him throwing up in a trash can, like while I was sitting at a slot machine. So setting up the atmosphere for you guys. But the guy to the right of my wife was on the dice, hit a couple sevens on the opening roll. Dude, the whole atmosphere was just strange. Hit a couple sevens on the opening roll, so it's like, all right, winning money, but still got to throw money back up on, the bonus bets, because I always play all talls. And then he sevened out after, hitting a point and whatever. So now it's my wife's turn. My wife, gets a couple decent rolls, gets a point, hits a point, makes a little bit of money, then she sevens out. Now it's my turn. And I wasn't drunk. I think I'd only had 2 beers that night because I was watching the end of the Oregon Purdue game, plus watching game 4 of the ALCS at the bar that we met up with some of the other wedding guests, my wife's cousin, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm pretty sober. And, for whatever reason, I was feeling it that night. But I wasn't apparently feeling it on all the bonuses because that was a jackass move on my part. So I threw $5 on the all talls because that's what I usually do. I usually only hit like 8 through 12, typically. My wife was smart and threw $2 on the all smalls, $2 on the all talls, and $1 on hit 'em all because you have to have a minimum of $5 between the 3 bonus bets. So that's the way she did it. And of course, my dumbass, like I said, $5 all talls. Well, there was another gentleman there at the table who had $5 on all smalls, $5 all talls, $5 hit them all. All right, so that's going to set up everything for you. And then the guy to my left, I said, who was playing dark side. So he was betting on me to roll a 7. I already don't like this guy. Despite everything that happened before I got to the table, anybody who bets dark side against me, I hate you. I'm going to do whatever I can to make you lose your money. So I get up there and first roll was a 7. So, by default, everybody wins money, blah, blah, blah. Resets everything. So throw the bonus bets back up. Long story short, because I tend to ramble. I knocked out the all smalls first, to which case I usually play the field. My wife, noticing the numbers I had left to hit for, all the numbers basically, started playing the field. Well, I get into a mental state where the second if I'm in a hot roll and then I throw money in the field, I'm going to 7 out immediately. So I don't do it because I want to keep the game going. I want to keep winning, hitting numbers, hitting points, whatever. So I was doing a pretty goddamn good job of that. Not to mention I was hitting a lot of hard numbers, which for whatever reason I have a tendency to do. That's hard 4s, hard 6s, snake eyes, hard 12s, 8s, whatever. So I was doing pretty well in that. Bet him a couple times, won a little bit of money on that, blah blah blah. So I finally get down to it and I knock out all the small numbers first, in which case my wife was playing the field on all of them. So anytime you roll snake eyes, you get triple the money. Anytime you hit 12s, you get triple the money. So she hit I rolled those and she won on those a couple times. I, of course, didn't because, like I said, I don't want to throw in the field and then 7 out. So finally, I get to a point where I hit a couple points and then I start throwing money in the field because I want to make some extra cash as well. Sometimes it did well, sometimes it didn't, whatever. But end of the day, all I had left to hit was a goddamn 10. And finally, I think I threw like $5 on a hard 10. And then I rolled a 6-4. So it's like I lose $5, but I get all the tall numbers. So I get my $5 bonus bet times 35. Awesome. My wife hit the all smalls, $2, 35 to 1. But then because I hit all the numbers, she got her 176 to 1 off of $1. So yeah. And then a few more rolls. I finally 7'd out. We kept playing a little bit longer. So, like I said, guy got in for 200, left, as you can see, with 376. So not a bad day at the office for that. My wife, on the other hand, with her $500 chip right there. Hold on one sec. It's zoomed in. There we go. $500 chip right there because she got in for 200 as well, and then 175. Yeah, she ended up walking out with like $700. So yeah, not bad for her at all. Not bad for me. I doubt I'll ever get all the numbers again. It was a miraculous, accomplishment that I put together. So, and then we walked out. So we left winners, and it was good to say. But anyway, here are my moving on to Ben's bets. We'll end the show with this, of course. 2 and 4 last week, so 50%. I got the big ones down. I said Georgia was gonna beat Texas. That was correct. I said the Guardians are going to beat the Yankees in game 3. That was correct. Man U, Brentford, I thought was going to be a draw. Man U won. And then, of course, the Vikings lost the Lions. That was a bummer. So this week's, I'm going pretty bold. I got Navy over Notre Dame. I hope to God this happens. I hope to God this happens. Please. Game 1 World Series tomorrow. I've got the Dodgers over the Yankees. I've got the Pacers over the Knicks. I'm hoping to God the Pacers can pull this off, especially because I threw them in Ben's bets, which is usually a kiss of death. And then I've got the Commanders over the Bears. Jaden Daniels still going to be out, but I feel like Marcus Mariota can get the job done. So, yeah, that is it, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in. Now I got to do a wardrobe change. Got to save. Got to upload because I'll be back in a little bit for Flip the Script. Oregon versus Illinois, number 1 versus number 20. So give me about 15, 20 minutes, and I will see you guys then. But as always, appreciate you tuning in. And as always, take it easy. And if you don't, take it sleazy. Deuces.